All right guys, Tom Hunt here in the kit room, and I'm just going to make a quick video because I've got something on my mind at the moment and it's very, very timely. So in a month or two this might not be working, but this is something I've realized about the last 6 weeks and will probably last for maybe another few weeks until the water starts to get a bit colder, and it's around perch fishing with small baits, small heavy baits. Let me get you into the thinking. So I've been gotten a couple of new tickets on some rivers this year, and I've basically been going out, and I love power fishing in the summer. Crankbaits and chatterbaits are my two go-tos. And I've been covering a lot of water, and I like to, but especially when I don't know a venue, cover a lot of water really quick, and I'm looking for that quick reaction style bite. However, I've been getting odd pike, but I've not really been getting that many perch. Eventually you get halfway through a session or so, and I've been sort of scaling down, and I go down to the Shad T Slim 5 centimeters, which has been, it's just an absolute winner. But I noticed that if I've got a 5 gram tungsten on, so in lead, 2 or 3 grams kind of marries up with the 5 centimeters okay. But if I want to go up to 5 grams on the 5 centimeters, there's not many jig heads that have a small enough hook, but also 5 grams in lead looks just too big on that size bait. But in the Western range, we've got a little tungsten micro jig heads, and they go up to 5 grams. So I was using that, and they've been working an absolute treat. And I think, fine, small baits, you're going to get a few bites on that, but the heavy jig head, or relatively heavy for that size bait, is the thing that's been, getting the paddle tail working, jerking it about, moving it, getting them to chase. So that's my first thing. Warm water, they do want to chase, but this small bait was working quite well. It was working well for bites, numbers of fish up to £1 or so. But then I was getting odd better ones, like not 2 or 3 pounders, but I was getting odd better ones, £1.5, £1.75, £1.5. So I was like, interesting. These small baits are really working. Been doing that for the last couple of months on the rivers. And then I had a day out with my mate Robbie Northman on the Broads, again, perch fishing. And his first go-to on the Broads, he says, I've been catching loads on these lately, was a little spin tail. And I was like, interesting. It's never really been kind of one of my go-tos. I've caught plenty of fish on them in the past, but I've always preferred, just got so much confidence in chatterbaits or crankbaits like the buzzbite. But they are a bit on the big side. And these little spin tails, even this, which is our biggest and heaviest version, is still quite tiny. So that's the 18 gram version. We do a 7, 9, 13 and 18 gram. Anyway, noticed that Robbie was, first couple of spots we went to, Robbie was getting into some good fish early. There seemed to be, like, you roll up to a new area and you seem to be able to get a better stamp of fish, and you get them early on this type of bait. So this is the Western drop bite, and it's got a Colorado spintail on the back. I didn't notice this to start with. Robbie was catching better sized fish, and I was doing a mixture. I was doing some soft plastics, a bit of netting, a bit of all sorts, and I was catching plenty of fish, but not the better sized ones. So after a couple of spots, I sort of realised, these spintails are working for the better sized fish, and they're so small, but they're heavy and you can fish them quick, get them to chase. So I pulled this out straight away. It was the 13 gram actually. Robbie was using a 7 or a 9, I think, and I thought, it might be a bit heavy. It's not super deep. I'll give it a go. First spot we roll up to, bang, I hit a nice one, about £1.50. One other bite, another couple of quick fish, and these worked really well as a quick reaction, especially for the better fish. And I then noticed Robbie stayed on them but wasn't getting as many bites, and I moved across to a variety, a bit of crank, a bit of netting, a bit of soft plastic, a bit of all sorts really, and you could carry on getting bites by mixing it up. But we weren't getting so many bites on these after the sort of first few fish. So it would be better fish at the beginning, activating them and then mopping up with a few others as we would go through, and it was really noticeable. So then after the second, third spot, it was like this was the first bait we would put on any sort of spin tail, and it was working an absolute treat. I was thinking, well, Similar in terms of vibrations, tons of vibrations pumping out, but not the size of a chatterbait or a crankbait. And it kind of got me onto the thinking, at this time of year, we're seeing tons of that spring of the year bait fish. So it starts off tiny, comes off the egg sac, and it's like this. And by the time we're now in this kind of late summer period, it's probably about this big. And my feeling is that there's big clouds of these. The water's still relatively warm, so they do want to chase. You do want to activate them. But they're starting to feed. Whereas I think in that hyper summer hot water, 18, 20 plus degrees in late June, July, early August, I find the fishing really difficult. Unless you go first thing in the morning, the middle of the day can be a bit dead. Feel like the light's starting to change a little bit now. The water temp's still up. It's coming down, more like 16, 17 at the moment. But as it's coming down, so we're going into a slightly different combination of kind of scenarios of how the perch are feeding. I think they're getting ready to feed a lot more. They're feeding during the day a lot more. The water's still warm, so they're quite active. But main thing is they're keyed in on that small bait. There's massive clouds of small bait. So I think my tip is that if you are going to fish a chatterbait, think about taking the trailer off. So I've got one here. Like, look at the difference in this. So these are both the 9-gram version. That one has got a shad tease pintail on it. And that one, I've taken the trailer off. So it's basically a lot smaller in profile. And I think that's going to be absolutely key. This is the one that I've been doing well on. The drop bite in tungsten. We do this as a shallow runner, like an ABS plastic and zinc, which is much bigger body size and much lighter. So this is more like the deep runner, and the other one's the shallow runner. I'm not fishing it deep, I'm fishing it quick. You get loads of spin on the retrieve, and you're getting tons of spin on the pause as well, because it's sinking quite quickly. But what I also noticed as well, this is where my brain starts going mad. I've dropped it, but here it is. The ones Robbie were using were more like leaf willows, or willow style blade shapes. All right, completely different to what comes on here. And what I noticed was when I was first starting, this thumps a lot and is pretty aggressive. And it was like, it was worth 1 to 3 bites when we first got there. And then I think it's probably a little bit too much for them. I think it's like there's something there. They come up, they smash it, and it's actually drags up the biggest ones in the shoal to start with. What I then noticed was Robbie's was a different style with this thinner blade, less vibrations. He was stretching his out to a few more bites, 4 or 5 bites out of the spot before they stopped. So me, in my usual way, I'm trying to pay attention to absolutely everything. I've come home and I've got a box full of these spin tails in tungsten, ABS plastic, large, small, etc., etc. I've also got a ton of these, which are the screw-in willow blades that Westin do. And I've basically been stealing. So these are the small. We do small, medium, and large. But I've been stealing the medium ones off, and they fit perfectly on the drop bite. I've been out since, and it's the percentage game with perch fishing. You wouldn't believe, just same body, slightly different shaped blade, completely changes the action, changes the feel. But basically, this one, when you're looking for the hard thump, maybe looking for a pike, looking for a bigger fish, but not as many bites. This one, higher vibration rates, slightly less vibrations coming out of it, less of a thump, and you definitely get more bites on it. So there's a little tip. If you want to do any modifications, that definitely changes the way the bait fishes. And the other tip that I wanted to give you, because I've been loving those spin tails at the moment, you do need something that's going to pump, because if you've got 200, 300 bait fish in front of you like that, you've got to stand out. So you've got to have some vibrations, some thump, These are the other baits I'm loving. Ricky the Roach tungsten vibration bait. I've been using these a lot this year, simply on the basis that they're new, wanted to test them, wanted to test out when they work, when they don't work, etc, etc. But again, tungsten, so they sink really fast, fish them fast and active. Again, these have got rattles in, the vibrations will stand out. So I'll try and get a little close up there as well. Just there's actually, the eyes are quite googly and sticky out. And there's actually a rattle chamber in the middle there, which is quite a cool bit of the design. But again, small baits, tungsten heavy baits, fishing them fast, fishing them aggressive, standing out from the crowd in all that bait fish at the moment. When the fish want to chase and want to be active, that's why they've been doing so well. I fish a chatterbait really fast, but again, the faster you fish it, the more it comes up in the water. And I fish them with a trailer. I think they're actually a bit too big. They're keyed in at the moment on these small baits. So it's something to think about right now. As the temperature drops down, these might have less effect because we might be fishing, they might slow down, right? There might be times in the day that they're really good, but I think the overall vibe, once you get into like October and November, everything needs to slow down a bit. So these aren't necessarily going to be the perfect baits then. All right, maybe we're looking a little bit more at like Carolina, creature baits, the slide up rubber jig. In fact, this one, I think this is going to be key as like, you know, a new style Ned, you know, creeping that sort of creature bait along the bottom, the slide up rubber jig. Just launched this September. But yeah, so just this if you watch this video and it's January, it might not be the best advice. So I'm trying to make it as applicable as possible and get this video out as quick as possible, because it could be the next session that you've got when you're out perch fishing. Something like this could be the difference. All right, so yeah, it's just something that's been on my mind. Small baits, but standing out with high vibration, bit of flash, bit of spin tail, bit of flash like this has been much better than my traditional warm water chatterbait crankbait fishing this year. So yeah, there we go, guys. Just a little timely tip on some perch fishing of what's been going on. Might only last a few more weeks at best, but have a think about it and maybe give it a try when you're next on the bank. Anyway, see you soon, guys. Cheers.